Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Reacher, Season 1, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up in the aftermath of last episode, and I love that Reacher tried to reach out to Roscoe and be like, no, it's okay to be freaked out and stuff like that, but she's like, no, I'm not scared. I'm pissed. Like, someone came here and they're trying to, like, scare me, and she actually, like, kind of flew at Reacher. I mean, I understand he was coming from a good place, but it's like, don't assume you know my situation and try to allocate it like I'm just pissed. It's like, no, like the FBI wanted to recruit me, some other agency. She's like, you know why I did great on certain things but not others? Because I don't deal with people's BS. Especially like theirs or yours, like you with your condescending, like don't assume thinking I'm scared. I'm like, no, I'm more angry than anything. So ended up giving Reacher a gun. It's actually a gun that Gray had gave her, and I love that when he got out in the yard, he shot it. She's like, "What did I just tell you about making sure you are careful with that gun? Because if you use it, everyone knows I have that gun, so trace back to me with any like stupid stuff you do." And he's like, "No, I got you." Shoots this like tree stump in the yard, and it's like, "Yeah, never test a weapon that never like." Use a weapon you haven't personally tested yourself. I mean, it's a good rule of thumb, because the last thing you want to do is like, oh, I got this gun. Oh, I never actually tested it, and when it really hits the fan, the gun doesn't work. It jams. So it's good rule of thumb. So, nevertheless, initially the team ends up splitting up, going three separate ways after. I think this was, I can't remember. I know they went to Jasper first, and then I think they went their separate ways, if I remember correctly, because they end up getting a call. Well, we finally identify the second victim, and he's a truck driver. Interestingly enough, he has a connection to the Kleiner's business, because a business that they were doing business with represented him, because he worked for them, and Kleiner's like company ended up getting like a lawyer for this guy when he got stopped for like a driving violation or something in 2018. So there's some correlation there. But they end up finally talking to what was her name, Mary Beth Gordon, I want to say, someone that's from the Secret Service. And I saw the actress is in Hannibal. I was like, oh, I think I remember that character. I've not seen Hannibal in a long time. I've never actually even seen the entire show. I've seen up to like the season 2 penultimate episode, but I've never seen the season 2 finale nor like the third season. But either way, if I was looking through the photos, I was like, all right, she's exactly who I remember. I don't remember the character's name, but I remember her in the show. I can't remember if she was like a reporter, or I don't think she was a podcaster. I think she was like a independent reporter, journalist, or maybe she worked for a big name publication. I can't remember, but I think that was her whole thing. Either way, like turns out her and Joe have a special connection. So she sadly mistakes Jack for Joe when he picks up the phone, and turns out they were pretty close. And obviously Jack is learning a lot about his brother that he didn't know about. His brother, the group that his brother is leading, he's the head, he's the director of a Secret Service section of Office of Investigations. In particular, his unit covers counterfeiting. So it seems like that's what this is all about. And Joe gave himself the assignment because he's the I mean, who knows what other other people operate in that, but he, as the director, gave himself this investigation. And apparently he had told Mary Beth like, he put stuff in place so that no one will be able to get away with counterfeiting without it triggering some kind of systems. Like, you will get caught. Like, it's going to set up some red flags. Like, there's no like getting around the counterfeiting thing. So it's like you'd assume that has to do with why he's in Margraves, but no one knows. Not even Mary Beth knows exactly why he was there, because he kept it tight-lipped, because sadly he didn't know who to trust. It probably also didn't want to drag Mary Beth into this, considering there was something there. But that's always the most suspicious people, where it's like, right, we had something going on, like, does she know more than she's letting on? I hope that's not the case. I do hope it's just kind of on an up and up, because I think for Reacher, it's going to be important to talk to her, because she's going to have a perspective on his brother that he doesn't have. Because there's this flashback later on that I think will be the downfall of their relationship. Because I forgot to talk about it last episode, but those kids they got into a fight with in the flashback of episode 1. Well, episode 2, they were messing with another kid, and Reacher was ready for a fight. And we do see some vehicle pull up, and that kind of transitions back to present day. But in this flashback we learned that one of the bullies, the main one, the head honcho Curtis, got a baseball to the face. Like, he ended up having to have surgery because it was so bad. And we know out of anyone, it's definitely Reacher, who's probably got the anger issues and stuff, so he went too far. But Joe's the one that took the fall for it. You could tell Reacher was like, damn, like, I wish I probably wishes he said something, and that probably put his brother on a path where life was just kind of on. He probably like got a lot of grief from his parents. He's the one that like made the decision, because he is the older brother, so I'm sure he took a lot of onus on that of like, right, it's my responsibility, so because he's 2 years older, it might be a thing of Reacher might be 16 and he's 18, so he might end up going to juvie because of it, and it kind of derailed his eye. And maybe after that, like, who knows? Maybe the way their parents treated him, just a lot changed for Joe, and maybe a lot of that regret about how things are handled is what made just sullied their relationship. Maybe it wasn't all at once, but maybe that was the catalyst moment that changed things between Joe and Reacher. And so the fact is we got that flashback, this particular part of this episode, makes me feel like there's going to be something correlative there. And like I said, maybe for Jack, he'll be able to learn a little bit more about his brother, like that they hadn't spoken over the years, and they got to hear more of what he was up to. I think that's going to be an important thing to kind of not reconcile a lot with the past, but also reconcile with himself, with just the lost time between him and his brother. So we'll have to wait and see what ends up happening. But Mary Beth did sound devastated over the phone. I mean, we as the audience saw it, but maybe there might be some later twist. I'm like, no, it was she was faking it, but I'm gonna believe her for the most part. For now, I'm always gonna have that twinge in the back of my mind, just waiting for that like flip of just like something not being what we thought it was. I'm just on edge, paranoid about it, so I'm gonna keep that in the back of my mind. But for the most part, at the forefront of my head, I'm just gonna trust her to be that she's being sincere about everything. So because of this, the group ends up splitting up 3 ways to deal with everything. Jack ends up going to the law office that was representing the truck driver. You have Finley going to check on Spivey, and then Roscoe is going to go back to work and pretend like everything's okay, like she's following orders traditionally, like Teal wants them to not be looking into this investigation to like, oh, forget about drawing any connection between Chief Morrison and like these other murders. So she's playing that role. What I thought was interesting though is Stevenson talking to her, being like, oh yeah, do you know what happened to my cousin Charlie or Paul? I haven't been able to contact any of them. They kind of go on radio silence. I'm like, oh yeah, know nothing about that, because they know not to trust. It seemed like Stevenson might be the more trustworthy. Baker seems like the one you don't want to trust at all, but Stevenson seems like he might be borderlining on the fence, because we know there were 3 killers and one of them was the most hesitant about it. It feels like Stevenson might be that person, because he might have done it because if I don't do this, my family's going to get in trouble. Just like the Morrison, just like Hubble was threatened. I think there might be something, because he seems a little more sincere. Like, I don't think that's just him pumping Roscoe for information. I think he is legitimately worried about his family, because he's probably worried or concerned that maybe something happened to them. So he's just like, right, do you really think this is the right way to be handling this investigation? It does feel like he is trying to entrap her, like, oh, like, how much do you really know? He is trying to pump her for information, but it does seem like there is some sincerity with it. So it might have been him, someone else, and Baker that might have been at this. I think the one that covered up the body in cardboard with something nearby, like, had the most remorse for the body. I think it was Stevenson, and I'm assuming the one that did all the kicking was probably Baker, if not someone else. I could definitely see it end up being if it was like someone kicking the body, I could definitely see it also being KJ. I could see that being an option as well. So we'll have to wait to see. Because speaking of KJ, we see him this episode because he pops up checking in on Roscoe because he finally reveals what he was kind of alluding to when he was talking to Reacher in episode 1 of, okay, and what was it, in Baghdad, he ended up killing some civilians and someone was able to kind of brush it under. It's like, well, for one, once again, showcasing their connections because they know the right people to be able to dig up something that is super buried like that. Like, how do you even manage something like that? So I guess that's also extra reason why, right, we can't even trust anyone in the Secret Service to let them know about what's going on with what happened to Joe, because we don't know who to trust, because obviously Joe didn't know who to trust because he didn't let anyone else know what he was investigating, which could also be how they found out about it, because they must have heard him whispering and maybe word got back to someone in his department. Not doesn't have to necessarily be in his department, but maybe in Secret Service as a whole, and they trickled that back to Kleiner because he has some like connections. Maybe he has dirt on people. Maybe he's lining certain people's pockets. I mean, to be fair, this is a large scale operation, especially if it circulates around counterfeiting. So a lot of people, a lot of money's at stake here. So a lot of people are probably getting it might not just be blackmail. It just could be like a lot of people getting their pockets lined, and this could be the downfall a lot if like Kleiner and his operation, if he's at the forefront of all this, which seems heavily like he is, that he would this would all come crumbling down. Either way, I kind of went on a tangent there, but getting back to the point I was making about KJ, like he's doing this because he's like really into Roscoe and he's claiming that he's trying to protect her, which I wonder, is there something like, he seems like the spoiled rich kid type of situation, but maybe there is some truth to that as well. Like maybe he does legitimately like Roscoe, but he thinks his money and wealth can really help in that situation when like, because it seems like he's also like taking such umbrage with Reacher because she's taking an interest in him, and it's like, right, I've been kind of trying to court you for years. It's like, I think that should speak volumes if she's not into you and the stranger somehow she resonates with. I mean, there's a lot of parallels between them. I think stubbornness and like how forward both of them are. Plus their backgrounds are very similar in regards of they're the only people left in their families that they're really aware of. Don't get it twisted. I'm not looking at him like, oh, he's got a caring side to him because of the Roscoe thing. It's like, no, that seems more like a very, like, you're very possessive and you're used to getting what you want and you want Roscoe, but she doesn't want you. And so you're doing everything you can trying to drive away. I don't know. In his own twisted mind, he probably does believe like, no, I am protecting you. Like maybe in his own mind, he thinks he is doing a good thing for this town because maybe he's not aware of all the shady shit that's really going on. So when he has Reacher stepping in town, he actually does think he's trouble, like a lot of people from town did. Even though it's like, oh, Kleiner's the one that kind of laid it out there that, oh, he has an alibi. Because it makes you wonder, considering all KJ knew, before Kleiner said anything, did KJ know one of the dead bodies was Reacher's brother, or did he know the entire time? There's the whole situation with Finley. I almost wanted to call him Clive, Jesus, because I don't. That's the problem when I make the connection to like because Malcolm Goodwin's character from iZombie, once again, his name was Clive, so that's the correlation. I was like, that's why I almost made that mistake. But either way, Finley went to Spivey's place. The moment we see a next door neighbor looking out the window, I was like, and he didn't see them looking, I was like, that's going to be an issue. Police are going to roll up and stuff. It's going to be fine. You're a cop. They went in and they stomped his ass. It's like they didn't even give him a chance to say anything. And one of the cops later was like, yeah, you should have told us you were a cop. He's like, didn't have a chance when you had your literal boot in my mouth. But he also walks out the cell being like, that shouldn't have mattered. You shouldn't have been so quick to beat up on me. Because you know what you saw? You saw a black man in at someone's house. Because that's not meant words. There's Georgia, it's the South, so don't get it twisted about where we're at. Obviously, I think there's some places in the South that would be. There's plenty of places in the South that's going to be an issue. I think there are places where it's going to be worse than others, but it's that situation could have gotten real ugly. If he wasn't a cop, that situation would have gotten even uglier. So, and also because he is a cop, like it ended up being something kind of brushed under. So they were just kind of like, oh, sorry, but they would have definitely brushed that under even more if he wasn't a cop. So, and I love that Roscoe was almost like, wait, what the hell? It's like, yeah, but he didn't announce himself as a cop. No, it was like, right, does we thought he was a robber. It's like, does he look dressed like one? It's like, yeah, but he didn't look like he lived there. And Roscoe was like, what the fuck did you just say? And he's like, whoa, 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 calm down, just let it go. He appreciates it though. He's like, I appreciate you sticking up for me though and having my back in that regard. It's like, because it is that thing of, I wonder, did he have, like, he probably had to swallow his pride and just kind of like take a lot of that shit on the chin there, and probably just as bad here in Georgia like it was in Boston, but that's just kind of an assumption on my part. Just like the fact is he's only been here for like a year, so, and the fact is he's carrying himself like that, it's just that thing of, I have to be careful about that, and it's just that stark reminder of like, right, like, cop or no cop, in some people's eyes, I will always just be the outsider, not just because I'm from a different place, because of the color of my skin. There's always going to be an element of that, and I think just Finley, maybe a lot of that is why he doesn't get too close to people, because he kind of assumes the worst in people sometimes. Maybe not. But yeah. So when it's all said and done, we also had Reacher going to the law office. I love that he kept up with the lie for a little bit, and he's like, the guy was like, yeah, so when did the accident happen? He's like, yeah, there was no accident. I'm like, you just gave up. You were like, yeah, I'm just getting the information I need. Yeah, so give it to me. And he's like, well, you're going to need to leave. No, I'm not going to give me that information I need. And starts choking him out with his cord. It's like, okay, do this, do that. Now staple it. A little bit further. There you go. You got the stapler. Boom. Also, I guess it got to speak volumes about the guy who didn't even bother trying to fight back. It's like, all right, I'll give you what you want. Just leave me alone. And it also just like, right, don't even try and figure out who I am, because if you do, I'm going to come back here and you're going to wish I had finished strangling you. It's like, Jesus. Like, you could have handled that situation a little more tact. You could have faked it, but it's also like, right, it wasn't going to lead to what you really need. So you needed an excuse to get in there to the front door, but still. I also love later on when the group meets up again and they're at, was it Jolene's, and they were eating food, and he had ordered for Finley, and he was like, I was embarrassed to order that because he's got a full stacked meal and stuff, and he had gotten Finley a salad. It's like I was almost embarrassed to even like order that. Like it's almost like it took all my courage to have to order it. It's like, oh God, but nevertheless, still butting heads, and they themselves actually go and visit Kleiner themselves, and while they were there, Reacher did notice the taxidermied heads mounts on the wall, and he's like, oh, marksman. So I'm assuming like John referencing Kleiner. So it kind of showcases it might be Kleiner, it might be KJ. Like, kind of seems like it might be insinuating it might be one of them in that regard, depending on who actually did the hunting in those capacities. But it might lean into also why, once again, whoever did this could have taken a faraway shot but wanted to be up close and personal just for the thrill of it, even though that would have been a lot more riskful in the situation. But obviously they leave it to Finley. Finley's like, no, let me be the one to talk, and Kleiner has all the answers he needs to kind of be like, oh, like, I know why you're probably thinking this. I know you're doing your job. But he's telling him, like, hey, you need to stop looking into this because it's not worth your time. And kind of like insinuate stuff about like, yeah, why have you been here? Like, your officers, the people from your team, is like, talk to me about like your line of thinking, and it's like, oh, if you were just, everyone wants to work together, but you haven't been that very welcoming. You haven't ingratiated yourself in Margot's graves, and I love that Finley was like, Horatio Finley is like, what? You're talking like you're my dad, but you're not. My only dad is Horatio Finley. And he is like, so if you ever talk to my force again, or tell me what to do, or tell me how to run the investigation, I will stick my fucking foot up your fucking ass until your heart fucking stops. And I love that Reacher's over there laughing, because it's like, right, you brought me in here telling me to keep my cool, and there you are not keeping your cool. And by the time they leave, he's still smug. He's like, right, someone cursing it shows like weak character or weak person, yada yada yada. The same spiel he had given, Roscoe like early in the episode, and I love him just being like, shut up. But initially we have Roscoe going down to visit the company that, what was it, Huddle had worked for previously, and apparently like he was working this currency branch of their company, but he just up and left, and after he left they shut it down. So I don't know if that's kind of insinuating like he was doing this at this other business, and that's the only reason why they had this currency department, and after he left they shut it down because they didn't really need it, because they were kind of moving on with Huddle, because it's like, yeah, he just kind of quit one day just all suddenly. So it could just be like he started this because someone asked him to it. They ran their thing, their scam, their counterfeiting element of it, and then bounced after like a year and then just moved on. So it is interesting. I was like, yeah, that was like a year ago that happened. And there's so many correlations with like a year ago, because let's not forget, that's when Finley got his job here because Gray killed himself. So that's why I brought up last episode, like it might be a thing of you just assume he killed himself, but maybe there's a deeper plot here about, because it could easily just be like, right, they're trying to put, I mean, obviously we have the whole Till representation of this is, they're trying to put people in power that they have a grip on, that these people will do what they want them to. So maybe they were hoping Finley was going to be that type of person, but he's not. So maybe they figured it'd be a little easier to apply pressure because he's an outsider, that they could use that against him. Reacher goes to the bar that Spivey was at in episode 2, and it's like, right, he might be a regular there. Try to get some information. One of Spivey's brothers starting shit, and Reacher laid him out. I love that Reacher like just like, right, you're a southpaw boxer or whatever, but he's like, yeah, but that's the thing about a fight. Like he's like, yeah, the problem with that is there's too many rules. It's like, well, when it's a street fight, you go for the nuts, you do whatever you got to do to scrap. Like this ain't no like official fight. And I love that he lays the guy out. He's like, right, tell me where Spivey. He's like, I don't know, man. He left and he didn't go. I'm so sorry. I'm like, please, that's all I know. I was like, change up real quick, acting so tough until he got his ass laid out. So Reacher leaves, goes back out, notices there's a car waiting. He goes in there, goes behind the bar, goes to the kitchen, gets something. We later on find out they were gloves, and he's driving away. I was like, my thought was like, oh, you're going back in there, you're going to sneak around to like a kitchen area to go outside through like a back door and be closer to the car and kind of come at it from an angle they won't see coming. I thought that's what he was doing. It's like, no, he just went to get the gloves and then he left again. And he's driving them to this secluded area. It was pretty smooth, and I think it's supposed to be a little representative of, sadly, how Joe died, where it's like, oh, he drives up the car, like, he dives when they're, like, on this side road near a barn and hides in the grass, and while they're outside, he's hesitating, because I think he's just, like, because he knows, like, right, I wanted a gun, I know this gun is tied to Roscoe, I gotta be careful about this. So he kills both dudes, immediately picks up the shells, but if you see one of the dudes when he turns them over has a massive hole in his chest. It's like, yeah, the gun packs a punch. It's a hell of a gun. But I guess he's going to dispose of the bodies. I mean, granted, they're like bad guys, so it's not like you're that too heartbroken about it. But as he opened the trunk, I was like, it's going to be Spivey in there, isn't it? And lo and behold, caught a bullet to the head. So you ended up being a loose end. I love that you thought like, oh, the people you came to deal with Reacher last episode, they didn't deal with him and he was perfectly fine. And they're blaming you for causing all these problems because you should have killed Reacher in prison like you were supposed to. But you didn't. You failed. I mean, in fact, if anything, you were supposed to kill Huddle, which we're assuming Huddle's dead. They still might need him. Like I said, this might be a thing of, oh, you need to teach your predecessor all of this stuff, and then we're going to let you go. Or, we're lying to you and saying that, but when it's all said and done, we're going to kill you. So I don't know. Huddle might be dead, might not be. The fact is we haven't found his body yet. Could just be like they've gotten rid of it. But the fact is Spivey's still in the back trunk must mean they've only recently killed him. So it hasn't been that episode long since episode 2 timeline-wise. So I guess that's the justification for it. We also had this really neat moment with Finley when he was at a bar, and this lady was hitting on him, finding out like, oh, you're from Boston. It's like, as long as you don't tell me about the Patriots. It's like, I don't know how the Falcons cut off. It's like, well, 28-20. She's like, I thought I told you not to talk about it, but he talks about being part of law enforcement. He was very reluctant to talk at first, but then he opens up and is like, right, I have a rookie I can trust and a veteran I don't know if I can. I mean, at least I can't trust him to follow orders and kind of do what I ask him to. But, he's here trying to do the right thing because for him, it feels like we're the only ones who are doing the right thing, even though every part of my gut is telling me just to cut bait and run. But it's like, right, if we don't stick around to do the right thing, no one will. And for her, she's like, yeah, that's good enough reason to keep at it. But it's like, right. She's trying to, like, oh, like, we can go to another bar, find a dark corner, kind of do our thing. But he's like, as you can see, I'm married. She's like, yeah, and so am I. But a marriage can't be going all that great if you're out here spinning your ring. And he's like, I appreciate it. You're nice too. You seem like a lovely lady, but that's kind of no. She's like, well, you can't blame a girl for trying. So, like I said, I still 3 episodes in a row. I'm still betting on it's not a divorce situation. His wife is going, and I'm assuming that has to correlate with. I that was my theory. Like that probably was at least last episode. I was like that might be why he left Boston under kind of like a cloud or whatever. Maybe there's a correlation there, and maybe even Kleiner knows that, might have been kind of alluding to that when he referenced that. That's probably what made Finley like even more pissed off when he did that. So, but yeah, everyone's kind of living the not vagrant but hobo life that Reacher is, because no one's like safe at home because they could all be targeted at any point in time. Like obviously they went to Roscoe's place, so it's like Finley's place isn't safe. So it's like, right, change places, also use a fake name so they can't track you. So I mean, granted, that type of living is, it's a byproduct of his upbringing and his time in the military, and also being from a military family. So it makes you kind of paranoid about like getting too caught in a routine, because that's where you can slip up and get got. But especially under these circumstances, which there's a lot of powerful people. And I love that Reacher also made it clear to Finley, like, no, I'm not going to go after Kleiner. He's actually going to be the last on the list because this is bigger than him. This is a large scale operation. The only way I'll truly get justice for my brother is to burn it all to the ground, and Kleiner being the last on the list. So I'm not gunning for him now because that would be the stupid play to try and go quickly, because it's like, right, this is a Hydra situation. You cut off one head, 2 more grow in its place. So you got to be strategic about how we approach this. That is like, yeah, he does seem like the full speed ahead, not thinking things through, but even in his anger and his grief, he can still logically know, like, right, there has to be a way to kind of take this all down, burn it to the ground so it never comes back up. That's how I'll honor my brother and truly get him justice. So it's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.